Imagine for a second that you're at a high-end rooftop bar in downtown Manhattan, or maybe a trendy spot in Los Angeles. You see two people. One is wearing a designer suit, checking a gold watch, and just pulled up in a brand new Porsche. The other is wearing a simple, high-quality t-shirt, checking a regular phone, and probably took the subway or drives a 10-year-old Honda. If I asked you who the millionaire is, you'd point to the guy with the Porsche every single time. But what if I told you that the guy in the Porsche is actually terrified because he's only 2 weeks away from losing everything, while the guy in the t-shirt hasn't worried about rent in 5 years? This is the reality of the invisible margin, and today we're going to talk about why the people who look like they have the least often end up with the most. The central theme we're diving into today is that true wealth isn't about your paycheck. It's about the gap between what you earn and what you need to live, a concept we call the margin. Most people focus on the income side of the equation, thinking that a six-figure salary is the ticket to freedom, but the sources show us that without a deliberate strategy to manage the stuff in your life, your income will always be the boss of you. This script is your guide to living deliberately so you can stop being a prisoner to your possessions and start owning your life. Let's look at a real-world example that happens in every American suburb. Meet Kevin. Kevin makes $150,000 a year. His house is beautiful, filled with the latest smart home tech, a massive 75-inch TV, and a garage full of hobby gear, a mountain bike he used once, a high-end smoker for the backyard, and a jet ski. On paper, Kevin is winning. But Kevin's lifestyle is a hungry beast that needs to be fed every single month. He's doing mental math at 2 a.m., wondering if he can cover the mortgage if his bonus doesn't hit. Now meet Sarah. Sarah makes $65,000. Her apartment is modest, but intentional. She has a high-quality cast iron skillet she uses every night and a closet full of clothes she actually wears. Sarah has 18 months of expenses in the bank and invests 20% of her income before she even sees it. Sarah is wealthier than Kevin because wealth isn't accumulation, it's optionality, the ability to say no to a bad boss or yes to a sudden opportunity. One of the biggest reasons people like Kevin stay broke despite high incomes is what we call the hidden second cost of everything we own. Most of us only see the price tag at the store. We see a treadmill for $1,000 and think, I can afford that. But the sources remind us that everything you own costs you money twice. The first cost is the receipt. The second cost is the rent you pay to store it, the money you spend to maintain it, and the mental energy you burn worrying about it. Think about that treadmill. In a major city, residential space costs between $30 to $50 per square foot every year. If that treadmill takes up 20 square feet and ends up as a clothes hanger, you're paying nearly $1,000 a year just in implicit rent to give that machine its own little apartment inside yours. It's not just about the physical space, it's about the mental tax. Every object you bring into your home occupies a slice of your brain's bandwidth. You have to organize it, clean it, insure it, and eventually figure out how to get rid of it. Research cited in our sources shows that visual clutter literally spikes your cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and makes it harder for you to focus or make good decisions. Your stuff is quite literally stressing you out, and you're paying for the privilege. This leads to a cycle where you buy more things to relieve the stress caused by the things you already own. To break this cycle, we have to start using a tool called cost per use. This is how the truly wealthy evaluate value. Instead of looking at the total price, you divide the cost by how many times you will actually use the item, not how many times the ideal version of you thinks you'll use it. A $400 winter coat that you wear every single day for 3 years costs pennies per use. A $50 gadget that sits in your kitchen drawer for 2 years and gets used twice costs $25 per use. The expensive item is actually the bargain, and the cheap item is the waste. This math cuts through the marketing and the emotional hit of a sale, showing you what actually makes financial sense. Another powerful tool is the replacement test. Walk through your house today and look at your stuff. If that air fryer or those extra pairs of shoes disappeared tomorrow, would you actually go out and spend your hard-earned money to buy them again? For most of us, The answer is a resounding no. Most of the things in our lives are there because of inertia, not intention. They are trophies of past versions of ourselves or impulses we've outgrown. Removing these items isn't about deprivation, it's about clarity. When you clear the clutter, your life feels simpler, your decisions feel lighter, and you suddenly realize how much invisible wealth you've been wasting on things that don't matter. Now, I want to pause here because this is the most important part of the journey. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the psychology of wealth and want to learn how to build a life of true freedom, hit that subscribe button right now. At Aliana Invests, we don't just talk about numbers. We talk about the freedom those numbers buy you. Join our community of intentional investors by liking this video and sharing it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to own less. Now, let's get back to the strategy. The third big trap is the boredom upgrade. We live in a culture that tells us new is always better. Your phone works fine, but the new one has a slightly better camera. Your car is reliable, but the new model has a different grille. We replace perfectly functional items simply because we're tired of looking at them. The sources point out that this isn't just a small habit, it's a lifetime wealth destruction machine. The average person replacing their phone every 2 years can lose up to $50,000 over 30 years just in unnecessary upgrades. If you apply that to cars, furniture, and appliances, you're looking at over $200,000 flushed away. The people who always have money defined broken differently, they only replace things when they fail to perform their function, not when a shiny new version appears. So, how do we actually stop ourselves from spending? We can't rely on willpower because willpower is a battery that runs out by the end of the day when we're tired or stressed. Instead, we have to engineer friction for spending and ease for saving. This means deleting those shopping apps off your phone so you can't buy things in bed at 11 p.m. It means removing your saved credit card info from websites so you have to physically get up and find your wallet to make a purchase. We also need the 48-hour rule. If you want something non-essential, you have to wait 2 full days before buying it. Most of the time, that must-have feeling dissolves once the initial emotional hit wears off. On the flip side, we make saving easy. We automate our investments so the money leaves our account before we even have a chance to think about spending it. We treat our savings like a non-negotiable bill. By designing a system where saving is the path of least resistance, we take the struggle out of building wealth. Before we move into the next phase of this strategy, we have to address the enough finish line. The reason high earners feel broke is that they never decided what enough looks like. As their income grows, their lifestyle expands to meet it, a phenomenon called lifestyle creep. If you don't set a finish line, you're running a race you can never win. You'll always need the next raise just to keep your head above water. But if you define what kind of house, car, and wardrobe actually satisfies you, every dollar you earn above that line becomes pure freedom. Now, let's talk about the FAQs that people always ask when they hear this. First, why do people who make so much money still feel stressed? It's because their margin is zero. They are slaves to their possessions. Second, how does owning less help your brain? It lowers your cortisol and gives you the mental space to make better financial decisions. And finally, is this about being cheap? No, it's about being deliberate. It's about spending money on things that provide a high cost per use and ignoring the rest. However, we have to be honest about what our current sources don't tell us. While we know the psychology of saving, these sources don't mention specific investment portfolios or how to handle high-interest debt. They also don't dive into how inflation or taxes might affect your margin over time. But the foundation is clear. Wealth is built in the gap. Once you draw that line in the sand, that enough line, something incredible starts to happen in your brain. It's like a switch flips, and you stop being a passenger in your own life and start being the pilot. This shift leads us directly into what we call the virtuous cycle, and it's the secret weapon of everyone who seems to have money while their high-earning neighbors are struggling. Think about a guy named Dave. Dave is a high-level executive at a big tech firm in Silicon Valley. He makes $300,000 a year. He wears a $500 watch, drives a luxury SUV with a custom leather interior, and lives in a house that looks like it belongs on the cover of a magazine. To everyone at a dinner party, Dave is the definition of success. But what they don't see is that Dave is actually drowning. His mortgage, his car payments, and the visible signals of his success require every single penny of his $300,000 salary. If Dave's company decided to restructure tomorrow, he wouldn't just be looking for a new job. He'd be looking at a total lifestyle collapse within 30 days. Dave has the accumulation, but he has zero wealth because he has zero margin. He is a prisoner of his own earnings. Now compare Dave to Elena. Elena is a freelance graphic designer living in a modest apartment in the same city. She earns about $60,000. She drives a 10-year-old Toyota that is spotlessly maintained and runs like a dream. Her apartment is small, but it's filled with light and only the things she truly loves: a high-quality cast iron skillet, a few great books, and a laptop that does exactly what she needed to do. Elena has $70,000 sitting in a high-yield savings account and a growing brokerage account. When a client becomes disrespectful or demands that she work through a holiday, Elena can calmly say, "This isn't a good fit for me," and walk away. She isn't being brave, she's being wealthy. She has what we call optionality. Optionality is the ultimate measure of wealth. It's not about what you have, it's about what you can choose to do. Can you leave a job that's damaging your mental health? Can you take 3 months off to handle a family emergency? Every time you buy something you don't need, you aren't just exchanging money for an object. You are trading your future freedom for a possession. The question that the people who always have money ask before every purchase is this item worth reducing my ability to make free choices about my life? When you frame it that way, the designer jacket or the newest phone suddenly looks a lot less like a treat and a lot more like a trap. When you start choosing freedom over stuff, you enter the virtuous cycle. Most people are stuck in a destructive loop. They feel insecure or stressed, so they buy something to get a temporary hit of dopamine, the retail therapy we all joke about. But that purchase reduces their savings margin, which increases their financial insecurity, which eventually leads to more stress and more spending. But once you build a substantial margin, your psychological need for security is satisfied by your bank account, not by your physical possessions. You don't need the $500 watch to feel successful because your growing investments already tell you that you're winning. This security reduces your urge to spend, which accelerates your savings, which increases your security even further. You end up with less stuff, but a lot more life. Before we get into the actual systems to make this happen, I want to take a second for a quick community check. If you're starting to see your own enough line more clearly, or if this idea of optionality is hitting home for you, hit that like button right now. At Aliana Invests, we are building a tribe of people who value freedom over flexing. Join us by subscribing so you don't miss our next deep dive into the psychology of money. Now, let's talk about how to stop the death by 1,000 cuts that drains your wealth before you even notice. One of the biggest reasons we lose our margin is because we ignore the implicit rent of our stuff. Everything in your house is a tenant, and in American cities, residential space costs roughly $30 to $50 per square foot every year. If you have a guest room full of boxes you haven't opened in 2 years, or a treadmill acting as a clothes hanger, you are paying hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars in rent just to house objects that give you nothing back. Your stuff is literally stealing from your future self. To fix this, you have to apply the replacement test. Walk through your house and look at every item. Ask yourself, if this vanished today, would I spend my hard-earned money to replace it? For most of us, the honest answer for half our stuff is no. These items exist in our lives through inertia, not intention. They are leftovers from past hobbies or impulses we've outgrown. Removing this weight isn't about deprivation, it's about clarity. It lowers your cortisol, the stress hormone, and gives you the mental space to focus on what actually builds wealth. But even once you clear the clutter, the world will still try to pull you back in with a boredom upgrade. This is the most socially acceptable way to stay broke. It's when you replace a perfectly functional phone, car, or television simply because you're tired of looking at it. Over a 30-year career, these minor upgrades can easily exceed $200,000 in wasted wealth. The people who build real wealth define broken differently. They only replace things when they genuinely fail to perform their function. Boredom is not a failure. Novelty is not a requirement. To stay on track, you cannot rely on willpower. Willpower is a battery that drains every time you're tired or stressed, which is exactly when most impulse spending happens. Instead, you have to engineer friction for spending and ease for saving. Delete those shopping apps. Remove your saved credit card details from your browser, so you have to physically get up and find your wallet to buy something. Most importantly, use the 48-hour rule. If you want something non-essential, you have to wait 2 full days. Most of the time, the wanting was just a momentary emotional hit, and the desire will dissolve on its own within 48 hours. On the flip side, make saving the path of least resistance. Set up automatic transfers to your investment accounts on payday before you even see the money. Treat your savings like a fixed bill that you must pay, not an afterthought of what's left over. By designing a system where saving is the default, you take the struggle out of building wealth. Now, we have to be real about what the data doesn't tell us. While our research gives us the perfect psychological blueprint, it doesn't mention specific index fund names or a step-by-step guide for paying off high-interest debt. It also doesn't discuss how macro factors like inflation or tax laws might shift the math on your enough line over a 30-year. You should always pair this deliberate lifestyle with a solid technical investment plan, but remember, no investment strategy works if you don't have a margin. The gap is the entire game. So, as we wrap up this journey, I want you to remember the invisible margin. The person in the modest apartment with the $30 coffee maker might just be the wealthiest person in the room because they own their time. They aren't replacing their phone because they're bored, they're keeping it because it works, and they're using that saved money to buy back their life. Wealth is built in the quiet moments when you choose your future self over a temporary thrill. Thank you for spending this time with Aliana Invests. Your time is your most valuable asset, and I'm honored you spend it here. If this has changed the way you look at your bank account, please share it with one person who needs to hear that it's okay to have less stuff and more life. A comment below with one item you're going to get rid of this week after doing the replacement test. Let's hold each other accountable. Stay deliberate, keep your margin wide, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aliana, and remember, the best investment you can ever make is in your own freedom. See you next time.